So this article is highlighting the Three-Fifths Compromise. So as the Constitution is being created, right, you have the northern states and the southern states. And the southern states, they're wanting to count all the people who are enslaved for their population so they get more representatives in Congress. And the northern states are not wanting this. The northern states feel it's hypocritical because the South didn't treat the slaves well. They didn't give them the rights of citizenship. They're basically trying to use them to get more power. So we're going to just kind of analyze this a little bit deeper, look at the article here. Okay, so again, with the Three-Fifths Compromise, before the Three-Fifths Compromise at the Constitutional Convention, they did the Connecticut Compromise. So remember the Connecticut Compromise, that's with the small states and the large states where they each wanted different representation. And then they agreed to have two sections of Congress, okay, the House and the Senate. So the House, it's all based on population. So as you go through this, it's highlighting how the southern states, since it's based on population, they wanted to count the slaves as the population. They wanted to be able to get more representatives so that they could have more votes. Okay, where the North, they did not want that. The North, they believed that they should not be able to count the slaves in the South. Okay, and so one thing to keep in mind here, because people get confused with this, people often have the idea that the South, they were good for wanting to count all of the slaves. That's not necessarily true. It's more the South just wanted more votes. Okay, in the South, the votes that they would get, they would use that to just strengthen laws around slavery. Where the North, they wanted to weaken laws around slavery. They didn't want slavery to stay as a system in the U.S. for very long. So one example of this, okay, so later on, one example of this is the Fugitive Slave Act, where the South, they voted so that if any slaves were escaping into the North, the Northerners, by law, were required to report those slaves to the police, and those slaves would then get taken back to the South. Okay, so that's one example of the South wanting to have these laws in place that would help them, and they were wanting to use the population to create that. Okay, so again, Three-Fifths Compromise, what they agree to, they say, okay, for every 5 people that are enslaved, we'll count 3 for the population numbers. Okay, so that means that if, let's say in Georgia, hypothetically, if they have 50,000 people that are enslaved, they're going to count an extra 30,000 to Georgia's population, which that might give them an extra representative at that time, maybe even 2 extra representatives. Okay, so the South, they agree to that. They say, okay, we won't count every single person that's enslaved, but we're going to count a lot of them. We'll count 3 for every 5. And the North, again, the North, they didn't want them to count any, but the North agreed. They're like, okay, fine, we won't let you count all of them, but you can count 3 for every 5. Okay, go ahead and turn that in. You can look at giving some Liger points to those who do it.